Happy Monday, everyone. Whether you're looking at this on a Monday evening, a Monday afternoon, or a Monday morning. Well, it should be morning for all of us. It should probably be about Tuesday morning for those of you that are in a different part of the world who, Monday has already passed. And so you're into your Tuesdays. I'd like to welcome you to the C.H.L.M.S Medi-Helpz Foundation. This is our first inaugural International Women's History Month event. And it made so much sense to us to have an International Women's History Month event, especially in light of the fact that we have women all over the world who, unfortunately, in some countries, is not recognized. The women's movement, the International Women's History, the Women's Day, is not recognized in a lot of our countries. And so it's important. It was important for me, and it's important for our foundation to actually make sure that women across the globe understand that they're important. They're a really important piece of history. I don't want to say piece because I don't want to minimize it. They're an important part, and they play an integral role in the movement towards humanity, towards empathy, towards health. There's so many different roles that we all get into and we all play when it comes to society as a whole. So it made a lot of sense for us to give homage to women all over the world. So we've asked a number of women who are leaders in various areas if they would come on, if they could spend an hour, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, if they could spend that time actually discussing the importance of women, the historical importance of women, so that one, we would remember our past, two, we would take notice of what's going on in our present, and three, we could look forward to what's going to happen in the future as far as women are concerned and as far as society is concerned. Because hey, guess what? We don't have women, we don't have society. So I want to take the time to actually thank each and every woman as we're not at the end point yet. Today is the 25th of March. We still got some time to go. But I wanted to just take this time today to say thank you for all the many women who, came by or stopped by or shared their voice with what was going on as far as the International Women's History Month. Today we have one of those women. She was beautiful enough, and she knows I so appreciate her coming on during Black History Month and speaking to us during Black History Month. And the subject and the topic that she talked about during Black History Month, if we don't listen and we don't follow what she's telling us to do, what will happen to us? Like, really, like, where do we go from here? We need to know about what she's talking about. One of the things that she has done is she's actually, I'm going to let her tell you because I'm not going to steal the story. I'm going to let her tell you. But once again, if you're listening to this live, if you're listening to it via, later, a replay, know that these videos are available for you if you want to pick them up and share them, because we're trying to share them. So if you want to get them so that you can share them with your own audience, please let me know so that I can make sure you get a copy of the videos that you're requesting so that you can share them, because knowledge is power. And without knowledge, we have very, very little. I am going to go ahead and introduce our guest for this evening. And before I introduce her, once again, I just want to take this time to say thank you to her because she has a very busy schedule. But when I asked her and I told her about the importance of what C.H.L.M.S is trying to do in educating, empowering, and engaging patients, she automatically said, yes, Andrew, sign me up, let me know, and we worked it out, and she worked us into her schedule So, Dr. Hester, from my heart, as well as the heart of the board members from CHL.M.S, we say thank you so much for taking your time to actually share with us some information that we all need to know.
It's more than my pleasure.
Who is Dr. Hester? Well, she is a board certified internist with nearly 30 years of clinical experience in a health, and she's also a health and wellness coach. She's an unstoppable force of empowerment. She is the author of Patient Empowerment 101, More Than a Book. It's an adventure, and she's also the creator of Patient World, which is a platform for on demand health and wellness courses. So, without further ado, Dr. Hester, I'm going to go ahead and let you take over the conversation. If you're looking at on LinkedIn, you have a comment, you want to put something in the chat, please do so. Same for Facebook. If you have a comment, you want to put it in chat, please go ahead and do so. If we are not able to answer them this evening, we will make sure you get an answer to your question or your thought processes. So, without further ado, Dr. Hester, please go ahead and let us know what we need to know as patients.
First of all, I want to thank you for blessing me to be here with you again. It's always an honor and a privilege to be able to share information that can change lives. I thrive on that. And so I want you to think about three words: prevent, treat, and reverse. And I want those words to become a part of your everyday being: prevent, treat, and reverse. Why? Because every year, over 10 million people die from a disease that could have been prevented, treated, or potentially even reversed. That's a huge number. And it's very difficult to really grasp that. But if you don't just look at those tens, so odd million people, but you look at everybody that loved them: the brothers, the sisters, the mothers, the fathers, nieces, nephews, and so forth, the number just blossoms. And so when we think about all of these people who died from diseases that could potentially have not occurred, been treated better, or reversed, it really gives you pause and it makes you wonder, could I be next? And so it's important to understand what we can do. We can't do everything. So genetics play a role. You know, we can't do anything about being a man or a woman. We can't do anything about our genes, the likelihood that we develop diabetes, high blood pressure, and so forth. But actually, you can. You can change, your sex or your age. But we now know that yes, you have genes that may put you at risk for something, but that's not the end of the story. You need to add those genes with everything around you. And when you combine those things, that combination can dictate your course. For instance, you may have a strong family history of diabetes. You may have a strong family history of high blood pressure. But if you take two identical twins and one twin follows these basic steps I'm going to discuss with you, and the other does the opposite, the one who chose to take the wiser path is going to be less likely to actually develop those diseases. Or if they do develop those diseases, that individual is less likely to have a severe case compared to the identical twin who chose the different path. Right now, the world is all abuzz with the very unfortunate news about the Princess of Wales. We don't know what kind of cancer she had the last time I read. And I cannot speak to whether or not her form of cancer could have been changed at all. And I'm not here to address her personal situation, but I am here to address yours. For instance, women have a strong chance of breast cancer. And a lot of women don't realize that regular exercise can decrease that risk. That doesn't cost you a penny. Getting out, being physically active on a regular basis can decrease your risk of developing this disease that has the potential to take your life decades too soon. Alcohol intake, drinking alcohol, also increases your risk. So if you're drinking regularly and you stop or at least cut back to definitely no more than one a day, if that much, you have input over whether or not you will develop breast cancer. And so while there is a lot beyond our control, you can only do what you can do. So you need to know what you can control. Another important fact is the diet. The number one cause of unnecessary death, premature death around the globe, is not cigarette smoking, it's not alcohol, it's a poor diet. It is the choices that we make, and you have control over that to the extent that you can get to a store and be able to purchase the food that you need versus your only option is the fast food restaurant down the street because you don't have a means to get to the grocery store. Or you may not have the means to grow things, but if you do, if you have a little bit of yard, or even if you have a porch, you can grow some things, even if it's no more than a tomato plant or lettuce. That's something you can do differently. So lettuce is super, super simple, to grow lettuce. You just need a little shallow dish. You can get that at Home Depot or any place like that. Put a little bit of dirt in it. As a package of lettuce seeds may cost you $2, $3, $4. And the good thing about lettuce is it keeps growing. So you sprinkle the lettuce on, put a little bit of dirt on it, and water it regularly. Put it on your porch. And soon you're going to have lettuce for your salad or your sandwich. And when you go to harvest the lettuce, don't pull it up by the root. Just tear it off. It rains and you have more lettuce. It just keeps regenerating. It's amazing. When I first learned that, and I would go and pick my lettuce and I would come back a few days later, it's all back. That's incredible. That amount of investment in your time and money doesn't compare to all the salads that you can have with that very brief investment and doing nothing other than putting a little water on it every now and then. So that is something that virtually anybody can do. And no, it is not going to give you 6 servings of vegetables a day, but what if it gives you 6 or 7 a week? That's significant. So do what you can do. You may not be able to do everything your neighbor can do, but there's something that you can do. You can get fresh herbs from the store, basil and so forth. All of these herbs and spices, they have something, some value to your body. Something better than getting something that's been commercially grown with all the fertilizers and everything that you're putting into your body. We know that a lot of problems that people have can be due to the chemicals that we're exposed to. So let me just jump in. So I talked about prevent, treat, reverse, because so many diseases, so many people die from something that is preventable, treatable, or reversible. Now I have 6 more words for you. The easiest way to remember this is A-D and then 4 S's. ADS. A is activity. If you are physically active, regularly active, you can decrease your risk of not just breast cancer, but many diseases. Decrease your risk of diabetes, high blood pressure, heart attack, stroke. It just keeps going and going. And what do I mean by being physically active? In America, they recommend, if you're able to try to get in at least 30 minutes of moderate activity per week, moderate aerobic activity. So what do I mean by that? If you're walking down the street at such a slow pace, you're able to text and talk to your friend, you're not huffing and puffing, that's not moderate. It's significant and it's important. And if that's all you can do, go for it, do that. But moderate activity is like a brisk walk that you can't carry on a detailed conversation. And you're not going to want to be texting because you don't want to fall and break a bone. Or if you have a treadmill at home, it's about 3 miles an hour. Or you could do 75 minutes per week of vigorous activity, like a jog, break it up over the week, tennis, something like that. Vigorous activity, 75 minutes a week, or moderate activity, 150 minutes a week. But what if you really can't do either? Well, I was looking yesterday because I was wondering, because I like to get on my treadmill under the desk. And while I'm typing on my computer, I lift up my desk and I'm typing, I just start walking. And 30, 40, 50 minutes can go by. I don't notice it, but it's like 1.3, 1.5 miles an hour, not the 3. So I Googled it and I found out that when you're doing less than the 3 miles an hour, you just divide that number by 2. So if I did 300 minutes of this lower intensity activity, I divided by 2. That's my 150 minutes a week of moderate activity. Any amount of activity is better than none. And so you know what you can do. Your doctor, if you have a chronic illness, don't get out and try to start running. Talk to your doctor. You don't want to do anything that's going to send your body, that's going to jolt your body, your system. If you have a chronic condition, particularly if you're over 40, 50, talk to your doctor before you start your exercise regimen. But just start slowly. Listen to your body and build up over time. So again, A is activity. D is diet. A plant-based, whole food diet can do so much. I mentioned to you that the number one cause of unnecessary death, premature death, is a poor diet. And you've heard the term eat the rainbow. That's because different foods have different nutrients. You're not going to find the same nutrients in a corn on the cob that you're going to find in a purple eggplant that you're going to find in deep green kale. They complement each other. One vegetable or fruit may have these nutrients, A, B, and C. Another has D, E, and F. Another has G, F, and Q. I mean, when you put these things together, that is what really makes a difference. It's not one thing. Speaking of broccoli, a powerhouse is broccoli sprouts. Broccoli sprouts have more anti-cancer activity than broccoli. And broccoli sprouts, you can go to the hardware store. I'm an Amazon person, but don't tell anybody. And you can buy your little sprouting jar, and you can buy even organic broccoli seeds and broccoli sprout seeds. And it will last you a long time. All you do is you pour some seeds into your jar, put water in it, let it sit for 8 hours or so, and then you turn it on the side so it drains out. And you keep putting water in a few times a day, and in 3 or 4 days, you have a jar of anti-cancer vegetables. Dirt cheap. That's something else that you can do. You can get it organic, so you don't have to worry about all the chemicals. So there's so much we can do. Green tea, black tea. There's a ton of things that we can do to decrease our chances of succumbing to a lot of these diseases. Another important point is that a study I recently read showed if you take 2 groups of women that both have breast cancer, and one group follows this whole food plant-based diet and the other doesn't, these ladies are going to live longer. This is aside from the cancer chemotherapy and the surgery, the diet alone extends their life expectancy, so they're more likely to live longer just by dietary changes. The same thing is going to happen with prostate cancer. That is powerful, that the dietary pattern you have, the foods you choose, can help you live longer even if you have cancer. So just imagine what they can do before you get cancer, if you ever get cancer. So the most important take home for you is the plant-based whole food diet. That doesn't mean you have to be a vegetarian. That just means you want to minimize red meat. You definitely want to minimize fried red meat. You want to minimize, all these fatty foods. And you focus, most of your plate should be plant-based. You can get protein in everything. I was surprised to find out lettuce has protein. Apples have protein. Not a lot, but every whole food has some degree of protein. Walnuts, nuts, edamame, you can get a ton of protein in your plants. And then you add all of the fruits and vegetables, the grains, the seeds, the nuts, all of those things, you can get a powerhouse without adding one slice of meat. But when you do go for fish and meat, choose something like tuna, salmon. Salmon is full of the omega fatty acids that are really good for you. Avoid red meats. If you like a burger, you know, don't go for the hamburger, do a turkey burger. I'm a vegetarian, so I go for veggie burgers. And I recently learned how to even make my own. You just get a can of jackfruit, you get some soy, a little nutritional yeast, and the you use your seasonings that you like. And I don't use regular flour. I use the wheat sort of flour and the vegetable broth, and you mix it up, and you can make your own veggie burgers. You may want to stick it in the oven with some olive oil on both sides, coat it with breadcrumbs. It's very good, extremely nutritious. You just have to have the desire to do it. When I was in high school, one of my friends told me, his name is Jeffrey K. I was trying to deal with some difficult assignment. He said, "Ann, there's nothing to it but to do it." Decades later, that still resonates in my mind. When I'm dealing with a challenge, Jeffrey told me there's nothing to it but to do it. Just get up and do it. Get on the internet and research based on what you have available to you, your budget, the stores nearby. Just make it your point to do something differently. Get out and make some changes. So we have A, activity, D, diet, S, social connections. When you laugh, it just makes you feel good. And when you spend time, you're upset, and you call your best friend to vent, you come down some. Social connections, strong social connections have also been associated with increasing your life expectancy. Very important. You've probably heard that if you don't have a spouse and you have a dog, you're more likely to live longer than if you don't have a spouse or a dog. That connectedness is very important. Next, I'm going to go on to stress. Stress can take you out. Stress impacts everything from sleep patterns to blood pressure to your cortisol levels and where you deposit fat in your body that puts you at a risk of heart attacks. It's just this ongoing cycle. Stress can be a killer. And so you need to evaluate what your stressors are. Is it work related? Is it family related? What causes you stress, and what are you willing to do about it? I don't watch a lot of movies. One of my favorite movies was The Untouchables with Sean Connery and Kevin Costner. And when the mafia was just really beating down the doors and really causing a lot of trauma, Sean Connery, turned to Costner and said, "What are you willing to do about it?" And that's my question to you. What are you willing to do with this information that I've given you? And it's not just about you. It's about your spouse. It's about your kids. It's about your siblings and your parents and your coworkers. If you embrace this information, then you can help them, teach them so they can live a better life. So again, social relationships, that's another one. Then we have substances. We know that cigarette smoking, definite no-no. A lot of people think that lung cancer is the main concern, is heart attack. More people die from heart attacks because they smoke than from lung cancer. And if I were to tell you that every day 747 is going to fall from the sky and kill everybody on board, when would you get another ticket to get on a 747? You probably wouldn't. But every day more people die just in America alone than from a 747 crashing every day. Yet people continue to smoke. It's addictive. People are getting rich as other people are dying as a result. In addition to the heart attacks and strokes, there's also the issue of blocking the arteries in the legs. A lot of people have heard of PAD, peripheral arterial disease, and when you smoke, it not only clogs the arteries to your heart, causing a heart attack to the brain, putting you at risk of a stroke, but also to your legs. And people can get the legs cut off because they don't get the blood flow there. And so they can have amputations. And once you have the first one, if it doesn't heal well, guess what? They're going to cut up further and further and further. They may start with the foot and then below the knee and then above the knee. And some people end up getting both the legs cut off. So cigarette smoking, whatever you have to do, do it. You want to get off of that. Talk to your doctor, the a variety of things that you can do to help you because tobacco is addictive. Another thing is alcohol. We already talked about how it increases a woman's risk of breast cancer, but also it can shrink your brain. We're all growing older. The last thing we want to do is to ingest something that's going to make our brain shrink. Not a good thing. It can also increase your risk of certain cancers. But aside from the obvious ones, alcohol and tobacco, we need to be aware that there are toxins all around us. There are chemicals, forever chemicals, that are not going to go away. One thing that you can do, you can go, again, I'm an Amazon fan, but you can get this elsewhere. You can get a pitcher that has a filter that will filter out a lot of these forever chemicals that the filter on your kitchen sink won't be able to filter out. So another thing I strongly recommend is go to EWG, environmentalworkgroup.org, and you can learn about the chemicals in everything around you. I read once that ladies who stay at home, they die earlier than ladies who go out, and they believe it is because of all of the household chemicals that they are smelling in, that are putting on their skin. There are things all around you that you absorb, the lotions you put on, the shampoo in your hair, the toothpaste, the mouthwash, the laundry detergents, every place. There are chemicals. So when you go onto this site, ewg.org, you can pick up your lotion or your shampoo or anything you want, and you can look, and it will say, okay, this has a D because it's associated with cancer. This chemical has a C, this chemical has a B, and you can learn what you're putting in your body. Do not assume that because it's heavily advertised, it's okay. That's just not the case. People, unfortunately, first of all, we don't know everything. But even, what we do know sometimes can be used to hurt us. Some people, they really don't care. The tobacco, there's no way that they did not know that people were dying, but they continued to pour out these commercials to seduce people into smoking more and more. People were losing their mothers, their fathers, their brothers and sisters, but they were still being fed this poison about tobacco. And so it's very important for you to realize that the advertisers aren't there for you. They want your loyalty. They want your money. But they're not there for your longevity. That is your responsibility, completely your responsibility. Let me give you another example as far as advertisers. People don't really realize that a lot of food scientists, they get paid money to develop just the right combination when they're preparing commercial products, just the right amount of salt, fat, sugar. They pour in chemicals and other things just to make it feel good on the tongue. So they spend all this time developing these things that taste so good, you just don't want to put the package down. So you keep eating more and more, and you don't realize that these things are sending signals to your brain, a part of the brain, the hypothalamus, that is the same part of the brain that deals with your metabolism, your thermostat, or your metabolism, so to speak. And these ultra processed foods can kind of tweak things so your brain is saying, when you try to lose weight, this is not right. She must be sick. Let me lower the metabolism so she can gain the weight back. In addition, these foods hit the same pleasure centers in the brain as sex, as opiates. And so while these food manufacturers are busy developing just the right food that you're going to love, the food that is going to impact your metabolism, the food that's going to make you feel good inside, just like opiates, just like sex, just like listening to wonderful music. Your body is saying, this is good. Let me have more and more so I get more and more of this sensation. That has nothing to do with you living longer. It has to do with you buying more and more of their products. And so my message to you today is be wise, be aware of what's going on around you. It's not about you. It's not about being your best friend. It's about getting you to buy what is going to make the manufacturers rich. But you have more control over your longevity than you may realize. A, activity, make a plan. If you work from home, which I do now, I got an under the desk treadmill. I got one of those desks that you can lift up. So I can lift up the desk with a treadmill underneath it and type as I exercise. Activity, you figure out what works for you. Get in front of the TV set while you're watching TV and run in place. You get the endorphins going, you're laughing at your favorite show, whatever works for you. D, diet. Whole food, plant-based diet. Again, that doesn't mean you have to be a vegetarian, but you want to minimize red meat. You want to focus your plate on mainly plant-based foods. S, social connections. Mother, father, brother, sister, friends. Have strong social connections. Learn to laugh and enjoy. And decrease your stress. That is the next one. Stress can do so much to harm you and can ultimately decrease your life expectancy. S, toxic substances. We just went into that. And S, you also want good sleep. So ADSSSS. People who follow this advice can add so much to their lives. People who ignore these things can be sad because they can end up with diseases they did not have to get. And so that's basically my message for you today. And I want you to think of your health not as an investment, not as something that is going to be cumbersome, but rather as an investment into your longevity. And so by that, when you get out and you start exercising, it's an investment in longevity. When you go online to a reputable source, such as the American Cancer Society, WebMD, or someplace reputable, and you spend time learning about a variety of things, prevention, that's an investment in your longevity. You read books, you do other things, that's an investment in your longevity, and not just your longevity, but the quality of life. It's one thing to live, to be 90 is another thing to actually be up walking around enjoying life with your faculties. It was mentioned that I do something that I haven't, really brought up yet. I did develop a website. It's called patientworld.net. And on that site, people can sign up and they can take a variety of courses from experts. One of the doctors was recently recognized by the World Health Organization, Dr. Mike Finster, who talks about the number one killer in America and most rich nations, heart disease. So he does a course. There's a course by a doctor certified in lifestyle medicine who will go over these same six pillars with you again that we know can help prevent, treat, or reverse diseases. That is lifestyle medicine by Dr. Marshall Seidelman. I did a course on the Patient Empowerment Masterclass, plus there are others. There's one by the ghostwriter for 5 New York Times bestsellers, Mr. David Jarr, and he deals with alcohol and marijuana and your road to recovery once you take that road down that potentially very dark path. And so that is one thing. I wrote a book, Patient Empowerment 101, more than a book, it's an adventure. You can get it on Amazon, and that can save you a tremendous amount of money over time and also can make every hospitalization safer, help prepare you every time you go to the doctor to help your doctor expedite your diagnosis, which means fewer tests, fewer procedures, less time that you're suffering before you get the right answer. In addition, I'm going to start health coaching, particularly for women. I am the Busy Woman Health Coach, and I certainly would love to hear from you if you have any interest in having a health coach. It's going to be group health coaching that's going to start up in a few weeks. So that's the synopsis of the things that I am doing at this time. But no matter what path you take, please take some path so that tomorrow is brighter than today. If you could see this bomb falling and it was so far away, you didn't worry about it because it's too far. And then you looked up again, it's a little bit closer, still far away. And in a few years, you looked up, it's getting closer and closer. And then one year, you look up and it's right over your head and it's too far to get out of the way. That's what commonly happens. And so, my ask of you is to look up, realize every day you're alive, you're getting older. You're more likely to develop some disease or diseases. So, do those things now. So, 10 years from now, maybe you won't have all of those health issues. Maybe you will not develop cancer. Maybe you will not develop some of these other issues in amputation from poorly controlled high blood pressure, diabetes, cigarette smoking, and so forth. You have more control than you realize, but only you can take that control. I thank you so very much for your time. And I pray that you make some changes. And again, my question is, what are you going to do about it?
Dr. Hester, once again, I do appreciate you for coming and sharing with us the information that you shared with us. While you were talking, I did write down some notes, and I just briefly want to go over some of these notes because
Okay.
what I do want to do is for those that are listening, I'm not seeing any comments in, but please, if once we're done, you want to add comments. If you're on LinkedIn, you can go to the three elliptical buttons at the top of the event page and you can add comments, and either I or Dr. Hester will answer those comments for you. And those that are on Facebook, you can send me a DM and say, "Hey, Sandra, I heard the video. I wanted to have some additional information." So I just have like 5 questions that I do want to bring up for you. And one is this: you brought up when you said, your family health is important. However, you don't have to let your family health define you, which is so very true. I mean, so, and I'm guilty of it because I'm always like, you need to know your family history. You need to know your family history. And
Hmm.
so you just added a piece into it that so often gets overlooked, right? Okay,
Yes.
so now that I know my family history, what am I supposed to do with it, right? Or now that I know my family history, okay, I know my family history. This is what's common in my family history. So should I have to sit back, or who do I go to see about this? But you the point that you brought up, and I'm not this is just a statement. The point that you brought up is very, very clear. Yes, you do need to know your family history. But there was a post that I read, like I want to say it was last week, that said that you could all grow up in the same family, right? But when you get older and you know better, one could do what they were taught to do as a child, and the other one could go down the road of no return, right? You both have the same parents, but what do you
Hmm.
do with the information that you got when you was growing up? It leads to the same thing with the family health history. Is you all have the same, if you have siblings, brother, sister, you have the same, basically, a lot of times you have the same history, right? From one or both parents. But what do you do with that information, right? How do you process it? You need to process it, is what Dr. Hester is bringing up. You need to proactively process it now,
Absolutely.
because if you wait and process it later, it might be too late. And you can't go back and say, "Oh, that's my family history. That's why I wound up with this." No, because you could have broke that cycle, right? You
Very often, yeah, absolutely.
The other thing that I wanted to actually bring up was this collaboration. Now, I'm one that I don't do well with competing. I've never done well with competing. If I find that I'm in a circle of people that are competing, I'm tempted to leave that circle, and a lot of times I have left that circle because I'm not on that competing level. I'm on a collaboration level. And so I bring up that collaboration because, as you was talking earlier, during Black History Month, we had Sarah Faison, who's in North Carolina, who has a community garden. The garden is for the community, right?
Hmm.
You brought up this, very similar fact, is that, okay, well, hey, I could grow the lettuce, and now you take and grow something, everybody take something, right? And lead up to it.
That's a
So
good point.
Right. So I think that's very helpful, especially for our community, especially when I say our community,
Hmm.
community of women, a community of under resourced, the vulnerable, the disabled, those communities that don't have the resources readily available.
Hmm.
Hey, if we break this up into parts, imagine where we can go.
Yeah, absolutely.
We could most certainly stay out of the grocery store,
Mm.
especially for the basic items and
Yeah,
substantial items that we need.
and it
Because,
adds up over time.
right, look, Dr. Hester, we could start a bartering system.
There you go.
I mean, it's a great idea, just to barter.
Mm.
So as you was talking, and you was like, I was like, okay, well, she grow that, and I grow this, and somebody else grow that. We keep this going. We
Yeah,
have
you can even get together, potluck, and put it together and have a few meals together.
right.
And then you have your social connections too.
Right. Your social connections off of the internet, your
There
social
you go.
connection where you're actually meeting face to face with someone
Uh-huh.
and having an interaction that a lot of us don't have.
Mhm.
Right. I mean, I'm with you. I work from home, and so I don't get that camaraderie ship of going into the office. Not
Mhm.
to say that I would want to go back into the office, but going back into the
Okay.
office where I see everybody all the time. I mean, I do go out, I have a tendency to go out to different functions and do different things, but it's totally different. The landscape of this country right now is totally different. And who's to say what the landscape is going to look like in 2 to 3 years when AI truly comes? I mean, it's already here, right?
Yeah.
And it really takes over, and it really changes the structure of this country, not just this country but all countries. What is that landscape going to be?
Absolutely.
When it happens, are you prepared to actually
Hmm.
live? Uh, do you know how to live? Are you prepared to live? Are you prepared to do for yourself the things that you
That's an
have to?
excellent point. That's an excellent point because AI is going to be taking so many jobs. It's not funny.
Right.
We can't even begin to imagine that. And so, what you can do now, learning these skills, and I mean, I mentioned lettuce because lettuce, you spend $5, not that much on a tray, and the lettuce, maybe $3 or $4, if that much, for a lot of seeds. And you get the dirt from the backyard, and you can keep getting, bowl after bowl after bowl of lettuce over the course, of several weeks, um, months actually. And so I think it is excellent to go ahead and start thinking outside the box. This is just the place I use. There's this place called fastgrowingtrees.com. They have done something, put parts of the tree together such that you buy the tree one year and the next year you have fruit,
Hmm.
literally. You put it in your backyard. I mean, I bought some pear trees. I planted them the next year. I had pears that were this big,
Hmm.
peach trees, all sorts of trees. So you put up, it may cost, I don't know, $150 or whatever. And you get a tree, you plant it, and then you have ongoing fruit for many, many, many years to come.
Hmm.
And so if you start thinking about things you can do, I kept going back buying more and more and more trees because it's wonderful to go out in the backyard and you pull off a peach or a pear or something, and you don't have to go to the store. It's fresh, it's organic, and so if we start thinking about things we can do over time to lessen our grocery bills, I mean that not that it has to be from that place, but there are a variety of places that do the grafting. That's what it's called, grafting. So you can get fruit from your trees. You don't have to wait 5, 10, 15 years. You can get fruit quickly.
Hmm.
And so as the jobs start going away, if you have your own, so to speak, you have your own garden in the backyard. And let me just say this: if you do that, beware of the deer because they'll eat everything up. So make sure you have your netting around. But just start thinking along those lines. And so, I grow collard greens, I grow kale, lettuce, tomatoes, in a very, not not even the size of my room that I'm in now. I
Hmm.
grow a lot of vegetables for my family, and there's just nothing. You want to talk about a salad? The lettuce that you grow in your garden is nothing like lettuce in the store. It is so soft and succulent, it's like melts in your mouth, and you know what homegrown tomatoes taste like.
Hmm.
So get in the habit of just learning, experimenting, and
Hmm.
figuring out how to grow your own vegetables, and that can go a long way. Save you time, save you money. I actually like being out there getting my hands dirty and the work
Hmm.
and everything. It's fun.
Now, I do want to actually move. I do want to actually, and there's three more questions, well, three more statements that I actually would like to have addressed. And one is actually a statement, and this is for um, all of us women, right? Because women, we're the caretakers. We're looked at as being the caretakers. History has shown that women have taken the lead in providing care and concern, empathy, and compassion for their loved ones, your boyfriend, your husband, your sons, all men who have these are who we talk about when we say prostrate cancer. So knowing the signs and the symptoms and knowing that prostrate cancer is something that our men can have, it's important for us to, take advantage of the digital literacy tool that Dr. Hester has out that talks about these things, gives you guidance on these things. What do you look for? What do you do? What if someone, a male in your family is telling you that they have these symptoms? Do you know what prostate cancer is? Do you know how to go and to find that information on prostate cancer? So when she says reputable companies, Dr. Google is great. I love Dr. Google. But then I'm a trained, experienced person, and I know what to weed out and I know what not to weed out, right? But there are many that don't have that experience of being able to decipher what's true and what's not true, especially when it comes down to health conditions such as prostate cancer. So when she says make sure you knowing a little bit about the site. Is that a reputable site? Look for sites like, you know what, I'm gonna toot her horn because she doesn't have to do it, but she did it. She built a platform, a digital, even though the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services have actually made it made it an initiative that digital health literacy tools are available. She has a digital health literacy tool. Reach out to her and say, hey, how can I get, access to that tool? How much does it cost? Is this on here? Find out places like what Dr. Hester has, the patient world, so that you can start taking advantage, ladies, not just of your house, but of the men in our lives, right? Because look, we can't do this on our own. This world needs both sexes. It needs both genders,
Absolutely.
male and female. So let's start paying attention, to what's going on around us, right? Then you brought up the stress level. I just did I'm not going to say a paper. I'm on LinkedIn Patient Advocacy Network, and they had a statement in reference to stress. Like, what do you do when you're an advocate and you're stressed? This goes out to everyone. Honor your own boundaries. When you break your own boundaries, you are bringing an untold amount of stress that you don't need to actually bring to yourself. So, what I'm saying is that stress level is real, right? We allow others to take us to a stress level that we shouldn't let them take us to. But guess what? We do it to ourselves, right?
Right.
We set up boundaries all the time and we break them. So if we're breaking our own boundaries, why should somebody else respect us enough to not break them? Right? They see us breaking them and pulling them down. So when it comes to stress, stress is a killer. We all know that. If we
It
don't know
is.
that, we should. So if we're allowing other people to kill us, why are we doing it to ourselves? Right? We're getting in our own way of living plenty of times. And I'm guilty of this. I've actually done a whole lot better in the last couple of months of being able to respect my own boundaries. But this is a call to everyone that's listening, no matter when you're listening to it. Stop setting up boundaries and then breaking your own boundaries. Respect your boundaries is what you have to do.
Yes.
And then finally, I want to actually ask you a question. And this in reference to the sustenance that you brought up, the alcohol. And I want your thought on this, Dr. Hester. The alcohol and the drugs, right? Those are sustenances that we shouldn't be partaking in. But we're in this country now where the sustenances that used to be illegal are now legal, right? How do we how do we get away from the fact that here we are saying and we're hearing all the time, stay away from these sustenances, but yet they're now making these sustenance that once were illegal because they were bad for our system, they're now legal. So how do we get around it?
Well, just like the fact that alcohol is legal and tobacco is legal, those are two things that can kill you. So just because you can get access to them, you can get access, to anything you want to, and you know, what you do with it is the matter. Is what matters. So you can, get access to your fork, and you can, stab yourself in the arm. Just because you have access to it doesn't mean you have to do it. And so tobacco and alcohol, those things take people out all the time. I cannot tell you how many people, oh my gosh, with who've died from smoking and alcohol related issues. I've taken care of tens of thousands of people over the past 30 years. And I could not begin to count the number of people who had a disease, they were dying, or died during the hospitalization. I was taking care of them, or whatever the case may be, because of alcohol and tobacco. So don't think, well, it's available so I can get it. Tobacco is available too. Alcohol is available too. But just because it's available, you don't want to get a DUI and spend 30 years in jail. You don't want to get drunk and fall down the stairs and break your neck and spend the rest of your life in the bed. You just have to use wisdom. You have to make some decisions about what you want for yourself. What life do you want for yourself? Because things are going to be available, but you have to decide whether or not you want to partake of them.
And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and close out this evening. Dr. Hester, I thank you so much for
Thank you.
your comments. I thank you so much for you telling us all about the ads, the elements of the ads, and how we can use those elements to actually lead a more productive life so that we no longer are we in the past with our history. We're looking at dealing with the history now and dealing with the history of the future. And we can't do it right if we don't eat right, if we don't stay away from the vices that are out there. um, they're not out there for our best health. They're actually out here to actually make sure we don't make it right.
Right.
And women keep, looking up and keep doing whatever it is that we need to do in actually order to be able to continue to be here for a long time to come. Thank you so much, Dr. Hester. I want
My
you to have
pleasure.
the rest of a beautiful, beautiful day.
You too. God
Thank
bless you.
you. God bless you too. Thank you. Bye.